Hello, I'm Teresa. At the age of 50, I decided to go and travel the world by myself. I rented out my house, I sold my car, I closed my business, left my job. And here I am, traveling by myself. And I wanted to share some of the things that I've learned on the way with you all. I'm a yoga and meditation teacher as well, and I wanted to share some of those well-being tips, some of those things that have really helped keep me happy, comfortable, and feeling safe as I embarked on this massive adventure. It's great to have you with me. Hello and welcome to my first video on my new channel where I'll be sharing some of the tips and tricks that I've learned and I've talked to other people about and cribbed for solo travel, particularly for women and older women like myself, middle-aged women traveling on their own across the world. I'm currently speaking to you from India, where I am for a number of months, and I've just completed a 12-month solo travel experience where I navigated across from the UK all the way to Australia. And I wanted to share a real sort of overview today of just some of the things I kind of wish I had known before I left. I did a bit of research before I went. I joined some forums. I looked at YouTube videos, and some great content out there. So thank you to everybody that gave me some great ideas of things to take, what to be aware of, and blogs and all of that. So there's a huge amount of content online. And I think it's worth having a look and seeing what resonates with you. But some of the things that perhaps kind of I realized as I traveled that I wanted to share today, maybe a few things that you'd thought about, maybe things that are completely new to you. So I think first of all, I'm a complete planner. So for my trip, I had like a spreadsheet. I had it all worked out. I'd got most of my flights worked out. I'd kind of worked out where I was going to stay in a lot of places. What I found as I traveled was actually that over planning probably didn't do me any favors, because there were times when I kind of wanted to leave somewhere earlier, and when I wasn't able to because I'd pre-booked accommodation, I was locked in. I did a lot of booking accommodation that was like free cancellations up until really close to the day. So that really helped. I'm going to talk a bit more about some of these subjects in a lot more detail, but tonight is just an overview of some of those things. So I think on my second year of traveling, which is where I am now, I'm doing a lot less travel this year, but I am still living abroad. I'm doing a lot less planning. I'm trying to be a bit more fluid with my plans and being able to sort of go with the flow and see what feels right for me and where I want to be. So that I think is the first thing. I spent hours with anxiety over visas. I had a real difficult leaving of the UK because I thought I was going to Bangladesh. In the end, I didn't, and that's a whole other story for another video. And I ended up delaying my departure, which cost me quite a lot of money because I'd already got flights booked from the UK to India. And I worried so much about visas. I worried so much about immigration. And actually, I don't know why I worried so much, because it was all fine in the end. So I think one of the things that I learned was that actually the things that you worry about are not necessarily the things that happen. And for me, and one of the things I wanted to share on this channel is that what you do when things don't really go to plan, which does happen when you're traveling, particularly when you're traveling on your own. And later on in this video, I'll be sharing a quick breath practice, which I found really helpful, which I hope you will find helpful too, just to kind of regulate the nervous system, which is what we sometimes need to do when we're traveling on our own and everything is new and exciting, but also can be potentially quite difficult. So I think, other than the visa thing and over stressing, I think what I learned was that actually when you're on the ground and things go wrong or not quite as you'd planned, actually you can work it out. You know, we're all grown-ups. We can use Google Translate if we need to be understood. I found actually as a solo female traveler, 99% of the time people were really kind and actually really wanted to help me. So if I got stuck, they would look out for me. I got befriended by a number of families en route, which was lovely. And I think that's something that I really wanted to stress to you, that actually the world is not as scary a place as we might think or we might imagine through the media. And if you are in a tricky situation, 9 times out of 10 people will come and help you. So trust that, rely on that. Um, Things that I wish I had also realised. I suppose I overplanned on like first aid and taking. My first aid kit was huge, and I didn't really need to bother everywhere I went, and that was the Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia, and Australia. Had pharmacies around every corner. There were doctors. I've actually just used the hospital in India, which was actually again much more straightforward than you would imagine, and actually very very easy to navigate. So I think I overthought all of that, what I might need. I think it is sensible to take a few things with you, particularly if you're going to places like I have been in India, where potentially you can get Delhi belly and stuff. So I think having things like Imodium and stuff is sensible, but perhaps don't overthink about taking too much. Obviously, you may need to take prescription medicine with you. That is a whole nother story about prescription medicine and what you can and can't take and what you need and what you can buy, but I'm not going to go any further on that today. Um, I felt one thing I really wanted to share with you, and I think when you're traveling on your own, you've got to be aware and present. I noticed that when I joined some group trips in my year of travel, and now currently I'm here with a friend, and you can kind of relax a bit more if you're on your own around your belongings a bit, around kind of timings, around planning. Um, when I was on my own, I everywhere I left, I checked three things. The three things that if I lost them or they were stolen would be difficult for me to navigate. The first thing might sound a bit crazy, but it was my glasses. I'm really short sighted. I have a really high prescription and a complex prescription. And I know that getting glasses, potentially somewhere like India, might not be that easy for me. So, and I travel with my contact lenses in and my glasses always because I am so short sighted. So, check one, glasses were in the bag. Check two, did I have my purse? Check three, did I have my phone? And the phone, not so much from communication, but just the fact that I've got all my apps on it, I've got my banking apps, WhatsApp, all my communication is on it. So the three things that I did not want to leave behind at a restaurant. If I left a bottle of water behind, if I left my book behind, it was not the end of the world. But that's something I think, have a think about what are your non-negotiable things that you really do not want to leave behind. And every single time you leave your apartment, the beach, the opera house, wherever you are, the restaurant, check that you have those things with you. And I think that just gives you a little bit of comfort knowing that you're kind of present and you're aware. Talking about being present and aware, before I move on to some other topics, just want us to take a moment. I'm going to share a breath practice with you today that is a really beautiful practice for calming the nervous system. It's a practice that's actually used by the Navy SEALs in tense situations. It's called box breath. It's very simple. And we're just going to take 2 minutes out now to do that. So if you are listening to this while you're driving, or you can't take the breath practice, maybe come back to this video when you can. And obviously, if you are driving, please don't close your eyes. Because I'm going to invite you to do that in a moment if you're comfortable to do so. So if you can, find somewhere quietish. I'm in India, so you may be hearing background noise because it's not that quiet here. But you can create your own quiet space. So finding that space, if you can, just sit upright. I'm sitting in a chair. You could be sitting in a chair. That's all good too. But just sort of feel that length in the spine. Slowly close the eyes if you're comfortable to do so. Or you could just gently look at the tip of your nose. Just take a moment to be here. I've already given you a lot of information. Your brain will be thinking and whirling away. But for now, just let that go and come back to this present moment. Come back to feeling your feet on the ground, feeling the sit bones on the chair. Even just feeling your clothes on your body, the air on your skin. Just be here now. Be present. We'll come back to the other things later. It can wait for a moment. We're going to breathe together in box breath. It's a breath practice where we inhale for a count of 4, we exhale for a count of 4, but in between we hold for a count of 4. I'm going to talk you through it. If for you, me talking the numbers doesn't work, you can pause this video, just do your own practice. Some of you that maybe are more familiar with breath practices, might want to even increase the count, but I'd suggest starting with a 4-4-4-4 counts is a good way to go. So finding again that awareness, present moment. We are here, we are now, we're grounded, we are where we are. Nothing else to worry about right now. Let's take an inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Now just do 2 rounds on your own. We're inhaling for 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, and holding for 4. And then just gently sit for a moment. Keep the eyes closed if you're comfortable to do so. Just notice how you feel. There are many practices like this practice that can really help us in a very, very short space of time. Just calm ourselves down, regulate the nervous system. These are the kind of practices that I've used while waiting for ferries that are late, when I got to Delhi and all the flights to Dharamsala were pretty much cancelled because we were in the middle of the monsoon and I had to get across Delhi from one terminal to the other in the middle of dreadful weather on a bus full of mostly Indian men. And I just took a moment to breathe and to be present and reminding myself that it is all okay. You can gently open the eyes now if you'd like to. You can keep them closed too. That's all good too. Thank you for joining me for that. I hope you enjoyed that practice, and I'll be sharing many more of these practices as I share some of my stories and some of my experiences on the road. So yeah, I had an interesting landing. That first experience in Delhi was quite intense. It was 3 o'clock in the morning and I had to get from one terminal to the other, which involves an 8-kilometer bus journey. The weather was dreadful. It was pouring with rain. There was a weather warning coming in. I literally got the last flight out to Dharamsala, but I was sitting on the floor at Delhi Airport, not sure if I was going anywhere for many hours. And yeah, and I landed in Dharamsala and then arrived and I stayed at a really beautiful yoga place. Very kind people there, and they basically told me not to go out for the weekend because there was big weather warning in place. That weekend was wild, so much rain, hardly any electric, all the things. And unfortunately, that weekend, 222 people or around that number died with severe landslides up the valley from where I was. So that was my start. And from there, it got mostly better. But it was I'm just sharing that story because I think, when we travel, anything can happen and everything can happen. And it's not about we can manage risk and we can eliminate some risk, but actually coming out the other side of that weekend, I felt stronger and more confident and knew that I could cope with anything that was going to be thrown at me for the next 10 months of my travels. So that's why I'm sharing that story. So yeah, other things I just wanted to share today before we close, and I think these are possibly fairly obvious to people. Things like just making sure that you've got spare cash. I think, US dollars are still king wherever you are in the world. I think I've always traveled with some spare cash. ATMs around the world are not always reliable. Many places are still cash focused, where I'm in India certainly, and in Laos, and some other places I visited where cards are just not used much. So have cash, but keep it separate and keep your belongings. So what I did was I actually had three purses. This might be a bit overkill, but I had three purses, three places where I had money. So I had my everyday purse, which I only had, I'm going to talk in sterling here because I'm English, £20 with me, maybe £30, depending on what I was doing. If I was paying for a taxi, maybe a bit more. And my bank, and one bank card, my one bank card. That was it. I then had another bank card and some cash. It's somewhere else in my luggage. And then somewhere else in my luggage, I had a backup credit card and a little bit more cash. So I felt that if my bag got stolen, or if, I mean, obviously it could all go right. We anything can happen. I know some people carry and use body bag, body things inside underneath clothes. I didn't feel the need to do that. I don't really like that, but you could certainly do it. And certainly if you were somewhere not that secure, that would be good. I'll come back to security as a bigger whole another video, but just an overview on that. And yeah, I think the other thing I'd say, for certainly if you're doing a longer trip like I did, where you're doing 12 months, is do not underestimate how tiring the transition days are, the travel days, and that you will, and potentially it's really good to factor in down days. When I got to Australia, I traveled around quite a lot, and then I had a mate, thank you so much, Kix, who lent me his apartment in Brisbane for 3 or 4 days. I'd been traveling a lot. I saw some of the sites in Brisbane, but there wasn't loads I wanted to see there. And I literally just had a few afternoons of Netflix and relaxing and not doing too much. The weather wasn't brilliant. Seemed a perfect opportunity just to rest up. So I think it's really important. I've done a lot of group trips where you travel for 2 weeks, and I did that in my travel as well. And you move around all the time. Every couple of days you're moving. And that, I think, you can do for a short space of time. I can't do it for very long. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, absolute maximum. Then I need to stop. I need to have no activities planned. I don't want to go sightseeing. I just want to rest with no agenda. Maybe I'll go and get a coffee. Maybe I'll read my book on the beach, whatever it might be. So I think that's really important if you are planning something. I'm going to come back to this as a whole nother video of like how to plan a year, like I've just done. Otherwise, don't worry about stuff. So I worried about, I've had things break. I've managed to get, in fact, just here, I found a great tailor that's just fixed my trousers for me for 30 pence, right? So on the road, you can get things fixed. I got to Australia. I didn't have any of the right clothes. It was really cold because it was going into their winter, and I was in Melbourne. So I went to charity shops. I bought clothes, including, I think, this t-shirt, which comes from Melbourne. And then I left things behind as well. So when you've got a very limited wardrobe, you find that if you're hand washing things as well, they don't last great. And I've been buying quite fairly cheap clothes, I suppose. So I left things behind, or I gave things away on the route. So, and you can buy absolutely pretty much everything that you might need away. The one thing, and I'm going back to my very poor eyesight, is contact lens solution, because I wear gas permeable rigid contact lens, and I use gas permeable rigid contact lens solution, which is tricky to find outside of the West. So I took 6 bottles with me. Some friends came and joined me and helped me and brought a few extra out. So let's just check if there's anything a little bit quirky that you think, yeah, actually, you can look online. You can look on things like Amazon. I was looking on Amazon India. You can check in the shops. It's just, yeah, it's worth checking if there's anything like that you may have in your life that you think might be a bit tricky. But everything else, oh my God, you can buy everything. You can buy everything. Finally, I just wanted to mention about loneliness. as, and I'm going to share later on a meditation that I've written about loneliness, because it is something that if you're solo traveling, at some point you will probably encounter. And it's not something to be afraid of, and it's not something to stop you traveling. It's something that actually, once you sit with it and you embrace it, it's really, really beautiful practice. I'm so much more comfortable with my own company now. I would never be the person that would go to the theatre on my own. I would never be the person that would sit in a restaurant on my own. I was married for many, many years before I fairly recently divorced and then set off on my massive adventure. So I hadn't had that experience before, and now I'm so comfortable doing it. It really doesn't bother me at all, going out and doing things on my own. And that's the big takeaway. The end of my year, I have grown so much in confidence. I talk to people. I've learned so much. I've made friends across the world. And I'm just going to close today because I've already talked a little bit longer than I'd hoped to for my first video. Just to say, if you are on the fence, if you are thinking about doing any adventure, whether it's a weekend away by yourself for the first time in your hometown, if it's going to the next door country, or if it's a bigger trip where you're going to do what I did and quit my job and sell the car and rent the house and do the whole thing, just do it. Life is for living. And I'm going to close with my favorite mantra: if not now, when? So on that note, I wish you all well. Thank you so much for joining me. Please do like, share and subscribe. This is the first of, I hope, many videos, and I'll be sharing some of those practices that have really helped me embrace and enjoy my experience of solo travel. Thank you so much. You know what to do if you like this video. Please like, share and subscribe.